welcome back to Beer Budget Moto. We're going to do a little walk around catch-up video on the 2022 Can-Am X3. I added a front bumper and winch to the machine. I did not do a how-to video, so I'm just going to do a little overview on some things that were problematic, some things that would be helpful to know, and show you where we're at and what we got to finish up here. So real quick, we've got the Can-Am factory BRP. This is their pre-runner bumper. You can see it's got a nice aluminum skid plate, goes all the way up underneath where the winch is, all aluminum, bolts on, says Can-Am engraved there into the metal. That's pretty cool. Pre-runner style bumper, so just enough to come out and kind of protect the headlights, up and over the radiator area, and the grill has a nice little notch in it to not obstruct this opening, which allows a lot of fresh air into the radiator there. Same thing on the other side. Fully cut out here for your fair lead. Keeps the fair lead tucked away and protected as well. You got some holes up here if you want to either mount a light bar across and span this gap, or if you want to mount two pod lights or something like that up front. It's already got mounts in there as well. I also noticed it has two holes down here. I'm not sure what those are for. I'm not sure if those are to mount any lights or any factory BRP stuff or not, but overall I really like it. I'm not sure how well this finish is going to hold up. You can tell just from putting it on, it's got dirty fingerprints on it. It's just kind of a coarse, almost like a bed liner material, powder coat I assume, but it just doesn't seem overly durable from what I've noticed. It is the same coating that's on the rock sliders that we put on in the previous video, so you know, it's kind of the same fit for all the Can-Am stuff that I've noticed as far as the factory stuff that I got for it when I ordered it. So we went with the Can-Am 4,500 pound winch. I don't know if you can read that. Can-Am HD 4500. This was straight from Can-Am as well, obviously. Their 4,500 pound winch came with this fair lead, which is, you know, not the greatest looking fair lead. I know they make some really nice slim ones that are just kind of beveled on the edges and don't have the rollers. I'm going to use this until the rollers give me a hard time. I have a feeling that they're going to get caked with mud and pebbles and stuff like that, and they're just going to start to rust and look pretty crappy. But for now, it came with the kit. Bolted it on. We'll use it for now. Comes with the rubber stop to keep your hook from you know, getting pulled into the fair lead and keep it quiet. You can see that there's really not any noise there, so when this is bouncing around on the trail, you're not going to probably hear too much of that. Comes with your pull strap, Can-Am, and yeah, so one thing about the winch, which is not entirely obvious, but one of the things I want to do today, so I've actually mounted the winch backwards. That was my fault. It was also due to just really poor directions on all of this Can-Am stuff. The winch will bolt in to the bumper either way, but I've got your lock and unlock switch on the driver's side, which honestly I just assumed that that's how it would go, because, you know, if you're going to get out of the driver's side, it would be nice to have it right here on your side of the machine, and then you could just grab your winch cable and go, wrap it around the tree or hook it to another machine, whatever you're going to do. But actually this is supposed to be on the other side, and the wiring connections, which are now on the passenger side, are supposed to be on the driver's side. So I mounted it backwards. It's not a huge deal. All I have to do is disconnect my power and ground from this side. 4 bolts that hold it to the bumper. It will slide out the side. I'll slide it back in, and 4 bolts back into the bumper. Power negative. I won't have to mess with the fair lead or take the hook off or anything. I'll just let some slack out of the cable, and enough that I can pull it out, put it back in, and then I'll cinch the cable back in tight. So I'm going to do that today. Some things that really kind of sucked about doing this. Obviously, you've got to take the front end of the machine off. This kind of front clip area comes off as one piece. This piece does come off separately, but the grill, all of this area comes off separately. There is a bolt. I'll show you kind of inside the gas door here. So you've got a bolt here that needs to come out. You've got the same bolt on the other side. Of course, that's going to pop out on me now. Let's get that back in. Okay, so you've got one there. You've got some bolts up here. 1, 2, same on the other side. Your headlights are going to have to come out. Those are pretty easy. A couple bolts on the back side here. Unplug your wiring harness. You can tell that there's a lot of factory stuff that didn't go back on the machine. So over here on the workbench, you'll see this little bracket, this factory kind of skid plate, and the factory bumper right here. So you can see those are your 4 mounting points right there. And then this literally was your bumper, just this like 18-inch long piece of hollow pipe. So not very heavy. I'm sure it would do the job in a small collision, but obviously you can't even really see it. This is like an air dam for the radiator. Air is supposed to flow into here and kind of kick up into the radiator. Basically directs a little bit of air that wouldn't normally go past the radiator towards the radiator. But it tells you not to use that with the new bumper setup, so I hope that we don't have any overheating issues or anything. And then this plastic little skid plate, again, it's just plastic. It's held on with plastic rivets, which you can see had to be kind of pulled off and pried off. Just wasn't really made to ever have to come off, because that's all that holds it on. So obviously our new polished metal or aluminum one is going to hold up a lot better. But so those don't go back on, and then this is all the factory hardware that's not going to go back on. They give you new nuts here that go on your control arms and hold the bumper to the frame. A bunch of these Allen bolts and stuff like that, pass-through bolts. These were all things that went like in your holes here on the bumper. They held on your air dam. You can see here on the front area, like right here is a hole that no longer is being used. There's nothing, there's nothing there anymore. So that's a bolt there, and one on the other side that's not going to be used anymore. All of this came with new hardware, so these are all new bolts. On the underside, a couple new bolts. So you didn't need any of that. So will kind of make you feel like you didn't put everything back together properly, but you're all right. It just came with a lot of new stuff, and some stuff just didn't get reused. So anyway, tricky parts about this. The hardest thing or I should say the only thing I really had trouble with is, it's going to be a little hard to tell, but inside here is a bracket that comes with the bumper kit. It's a reinforcement bracket, and it goes, you've got to pull your bolts out for the upper control arms, one on this side, one on that side. The bolts come in from the back side towards the front. However, so yeah, you've got to pull these bolts out to get the support bracket on. Well, if you've got your front diff actuator right here, you can't get this bolt out. I mean, you can see the bolt head's right there. There's like a 1/2 inch gap before that bolt head's going to hit this actuator. Didn't say anything in the instructions about having to pull this actuator off. I was a little hesitant to do so because of that, but it was the only way that you're going to get this bolt out, is to pull this actuator off the front diff. So I went through that. I pulled this actuator off. There's 3 bolts. You can kind of see these brass colored bolts, 1, 2, 3. There's 3 on the side. There's also one on the other side that goes straight down from the top, and that bolt stripped out on me. So these are Torx head bolts. These 3 came out. The other one I had to come in way up from the top with a long extension. It was on a little bit of an angle, and it stripped out on me. I was able to get the bolt out, and I just replaced it with one of the spare bolts that was the same length from, you know, leftover bolts from the front end kit. So you have to pull the actuator off. You don't have to pull it all the way out of the machine, but you just have to move it out of the way a little bit to get this passenger front upper control arm mount bolt out to put this brace in. And then you're supposed to, these holes are already drilled into the factory frame. There's holes on this support. There's holes on this support that are supposed to line up with these holes, and it includes bolts and nuts to go through there and kind of support the sides of this. Well, these do not line up. You can see on this side, does not line up at all. It might be a little tricky to tell, but it just doesn't line up at all. I mean, you can see a little bit of the hole on the bracket in there, but not a lot. On the driver's side, it lined up better. I don't know if you can see, lined up a little bit better, but I mean, there's still like a lip showing through this hole. I tried to put a bolt through there. I tried to kind of tap and force a bolt through there. It just wasn't going to fit. So yeah, I mean, that's just not great. I don't know if it's design of the bracket or what. Here's a little better view of the bracket. So you can see your upper control arm mount bolts go through there, one on this side, one on that side. So that's the majority of your strengthening. It just has those extra bolt holes on the side just for a little extra support, but it just, these little tabs, these little wings are not, they're not a perfect fit to the frame. You can see, I mean, there's a pretty good gap there, and so they're just not lined up exactly the same, and those bolt holes didn't work for me. So ended up leaving those two bolts out. So again, you had to take the smart lock actuator off, which was not listed in the instructions, and these support bolts here, one on either side, did not line up after getting the control arm bolts back through and the new nuts on and tightening everything up. So that just kind of is what it is. I don't think it's really going to affect anything, but it was the only thing that kind of made me struggle a little bit and wasted a good bit of time. So again, you know, I did not disconnect the radiator hoses. Was able to unbolt the radiator and just cut a couple of the zip ties that were holding the radiator hoses, move the entire radiator up and zip tie it to the upper shock mount there. That worked out well. Everything else bolts back in. Didn't have any issues there. So we're going to swap the here's your winch bolts here, 1, 2, and then 2 on the other side. So just those 4 bolts, easy access still right in here through the lower control arm, you know, by the grease zerks there. We'll pull that out, we'll slide the winch out, we'll get it swapped around. I do still have the passenger seat out of the machine, so you have to take the passenger seat out. I did struggle a good bit getting these rear nuts off of these studs. So these are your seat spacers, just a piece of aluminum. I know some people change those out to raise or lower the seat. These upper through bolts had no issues getting out. These nuts on the back were super tight. I mean, they were way tight, and with the seat in place, you either have to have a super long extension and try and bust them off from like up here, or you have to try and get under the seat, and then you just really don't have much leverage. And then obviously here's your battery, factory battery location. Disconnect your battery when you're hooking up the winch. You're going to run your winch wiring harness in through the firewall. It's going to come into this like center console area. I pulled it down and around and through all of this, and then you get this kind of junction block here. It comes with these little red rubber coated metal brackets. These I don't know if they're like capacitors behind there or some sort of weird looking relay that I've never seen before. what's kind of strange is you have to assemble all of this yourself. I don't know why they can't just assemble it for you so that there's no question on how it all goes, but the wiring was, the instructions for the wiring was questionable at best. I mean, obviously you can see it's color coded green, black, blue, but you know, it just, you had a plug on here and a plug up for the winch. Your remote controller is right here. This is your remote for when you're outside the machine. Obviously we've got your main switch in and out here, your rocker switch, which I decided to mount right there next to the factory override switch. I did choose to install the remote accessory power supply there, just so that we can use it if we need it. I mean, you're already in the middle of doing this, you might as well just finish buttoning it up. So like the wiring for that was strange, and you had the terminals were actually not plugged into the connector. You had to figure out which wire went in which spot in the connector and then push the wiring into the connector before you actually plug the connector into where it goes. So it was just, it seemed like a lot of extra work for something that's supposed to be plug and play. So the instructions could have been better. This, you know, kind of junction block relay situation could have been pre-assembled and just ready to bolt into, you know, your junction box there. I'm not sure why they made it so so difficult, so complicated for a factory Can-Am product. But anyway, today I'm going to switch the winch around. I've got a new battery tender for this guy here. I've already got a battery tender on the R6. You can see it's plugged in here right now. Got the cable for that. But my other battery tender for my old boat is broken. So I got a new battery tender. I'm going to hardwire the leads onto this so that I can just plug it in over the winter time, keep this guy charged up and topped off for when we're ready to rip. And I've got some dielectric grease we're going to put on all these terminals here, the ones underneath here. Going to cover those in dielectric grease, and also the connectors on the winch. And then we're going to get it all buttoned up and ready to rock and roll, because we've got a riding trip coming up in 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays from now. I'm going to be out of town next weekend up at my camp for a work detail, so it's got to get done this weekend so that it's ready to roll for Saturday. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to get it buttoned up. I'll do a quick walk around once it's all done, and we'll get at it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hang tight, and be back soon. Alright guys, so as you can see, we've got all the plastics back in place here. I had this panel pulled out, as well as this center console panel pulled out. So the only one that has any bolts or anything is this center console panel. You just got two of these plastic quick connect clips on the side, a Torx bolt here, and a Torx bolt that goes in on an angle on the other side here on the driver's side. So that's back in. These are back in. This is good. This is good. I put some dielectric grease, Permatex dielectric grease on the terminals that were on this solenoid and relay here, as well as on the negative and positive battery terminals. I've got my battery tender quick connect lead wired up. You can see here negative side, positive side there underneath the rubber. So again, negative positive terminals hooked up, dielectric grease on those. For some dumb reason, a brand new, $25,000 side-by-side that was clearly made to have a plastic cover. I mean, you can see where the tabs would have fit down in here and the quick connects would have gone in here. It's even recessed for a panel to sit in there and fit flush to keep all this dirt and sand and mud out of the battery box. It doesn't come with one, so I mean, that's honestly pretty crappy on Can-Am's part to not include what's probably a $2 piece of plastic to cover that battery box and keep crap out of there, keep the battery terminals a little cleaner and from corroding and everything. But anyway, I'm not going to buy the panel for it because it's not there. The seat is there, so I mean, everything that's going to get on it is going to come up from underneath. I mean, that's just one ride, and you can see how much crap is already in there. But it is what it is. We'll see how it works out. We'll see if it's going to be problematic, in the future, and if it is, maybe sometime we'll get a cover for it. But right now, I'm not going to stress about it. I added a zip tie here for my quick connect to keep it easy access. I thought about drilling some holes in the center console and having it pop up out of there, but once the seat's in, I didn't want to have to try and dig back down here to get this quick connect in a hurry, so I just zip tied it here, at least up out of the way. I'll be able to reach over from the driver's side, find it, and it'll just kind of reside here in the cup holder area. We don't really use those cup holders anyway because our door bags have cup holders built in that are easier to access. Anyway, that's there, and all that's left to do is grab our seat, bolt our seat back up, bolt our seat belt back in, and she's good to go. We've got to wind up our winch. As you can see, I did get that swapped around. The lock and unlock free spool feature is on the passenger side now, all bolted back in. Winch is still coming out the fair lead here, and our terminals are now on the driver's side. So now you can see that it says Can-Am HD 4500 upright and in a position where it would actually be readable if our skid plate wasn't in the way. Dielectric grease on both of those terminals as well. Zip tie up there to the radiator shroud to keep it up out of the way of the suspension and any moving parts. So once I get it buttoned back up, get power back to this thing, we'll reel it back in. I've got some grease, spray grease to lubricate the fair lead rollers and a little bit of the chain or the cable here to hopefully keep it from corroding any more than absolutely necessary, and should be ready to rock and roll. So let's get the seat back in and get this project wrapped up so we can enjoy the rest of the weekend. Alright guys, so as you can see, I am just as dirty as the machine now. We've got the seat back in, seat belt, lower seat belt bolt, a couple bolts up here, put the seat back in. Our panels are all back in and good to go. We've got our winch rolled in. I sprayed it with a little bit of lubricant. I guess I gotta switch this around now. We'll do that while we're here. So the tag's on the inside. There we go. Good as new. So I sprayed these rollers with a little bit of lubricant, all 4 of them, and the last couple feet of the winch cable there. I mean, as you can see, the whole bottom of the winch and the sides is pretty much covered up. At least the spool, the cable. The only place you're really going to get mud in on the cable is right through the center of the fair lead. Luckily, this rubber donut takes up about half of that space, so mud straight in there right onto the cable is really going to be the your biggest concern. I mean, obviously watery mud and stuff can splash up in through here, but it should stay relatively clean under there. This is all fully solid up underneath there. I think it looks freaking sweet. So anyway, that's about going to do it. We've got all of the factory accessories on that I've ordered for this thing: the sport roof, the clear half windshield, the factory rock sliders, the factory pre-runner bumper, and the Can-Am 4,500 pound winch. I do have some Kenimoto doors in my shopping cart ready to go, some lower doors for this thing. I just ordered the bow case, the Plano bow case for my rear storage here. I went with a bigger one than what most people are using. I'm going to try it and see if it works. It's a little bit taller and slightly, when I say taller, when it's laying down, it's a little bit taller, so it should give me a little bit more storage space. I've seen some guys space the box off of the bed with some rubber hockey pucks, rubber, plastic, whatever ice hockey pucks are made out of. I'm not an ice hockey player, so roast me in the comments for that if you want. But anyway, I think that will help clear kind of like this this molded piece right here, because it's not flat straight down. I feel like the bow case might not sit flush on the deck. It might want to rest up here, but spacing it up with the hockey pucks might help. It will also help airflow through the cab underneath the bow case between the deck and the bow case, which will help eliminate anything in the bow case getting super hot from the turbo and the exhaust, which is kind of right all underneath here. You can see the heat shield down underneath there from the exhaust. So that airflow should help prevent the bow case from melting or anything inside it from getting melted or too hot. And then I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to mount just a small day cooler on top of the bow case. I don't think it's going to fit in the bow case with the tools and the recovery kit and everything that I want to carry. So I might just get some eyelet hooks, mount those into the top of the bow case, and then just sit the cooler on top with a bungee from one eyelet to the other, and that way the cooler is up top and easily accessible. And if I need anything in the bow case, the cooler is so small that I should still be able to open the bow case, get what I need, and the cooler will just stay put. I am going to be getting a sound bar that's going to mount to this top rail here. That's going to block a good bit of my rear view out of the back window anyway. So I'm not too worried about the cooler or anything sitting up here. I mean, I don't want a big gigantic Milwaukee pack out kit or anything that sits 3 feet off the deck, but something that's a foot and a half or so off the top, just a little day cooler right in the middle, or I could even offset it off to the side right behind my head, so that if I do need to turn around and look out this way, the cooler's not in my way here. So anyway, guys, you can see I've got a lot of stuff to put away here: zip ties, power tools, all kinds of stuff. The old parts from the front end I got to figure out what to do with. This is what I used on the rollers and the end of the winch line: CRC Power Lube high performance lubricant. Lubricates moving parts, protects against corrosion. So that's exactly what we were looking for, to lubricate and protect against corrosion. Here's the new battery tender, so that will get plugged in up top there. You might be able to see my other battery tender, which is currently plugged into the R6. So I'll plug the other battery tender in up there to that power strip. Cord will drop straight down in between the seats and right to our quick connect. So again, that'll stay right there because it's zip tied up. It's easy access, tucks behind the seat, easy peasy, out of the way. So We are going to do some more work on the Twin 6 project here shortly. I do still have the grips, the bars, and the seat. So I think we're going to get started on that here in the next couple weeks. Honestly, I'm just kind of I'm dragging my feet because I know kind of how I'm going to prop this up and how I'm going to fabricate a piece of metal around there. But I don't have the metal. I don't really have any sheet metal working tools. So again, this is Beer Budget Moto. We're going to figure it out with what we got and hopefully invest minimal amounts of money into new tools. I also have the seat, but I don't know exactly how or what I'm going to fabricate the seat brackets out of to mount the seat. So it's going to be a learning experience, and those are going to be the two hardest things: getting the back of the tank figured out, smoothed out how I want it, getting the seat bracket made. The rear sets, the linkage, the handlebars, that kind of stuff's pretty easy. New levers, that's pretty easy. We'll have to fabricate a battery tray at some point, and you know, pick out lights that we want, mount those. That kind of stuff's easy. The tank, the seat are going to be the hardest things, and then lastly it's going to be the electrical system. You can see right now I've just got a hodgepodge of wires. This is all factory wiring out of this bike. This is way too much junk in my opinion. I don't know why a simple cruiser from the 80s has all this wiring. It's carbureted. It shouldn't, you know, it doesn't have a computer or anything, but I'm going to try and use the 06 R6 switches that I have. Headlights, turn signals, horn, kill switch, starter. I'm going to try and use all these buttons. Everything runs right out here and into this plug, and this plug. So I'll probably cut these connectors off and just hardwire everything that I need into these wires, and we'll figure it out from there. So I'm probably in a little bit over my head, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to see how it goes, and hopefully you guys can help me out along the way. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Wrapping up the X3 front end. Again, I didn't do a walkthrough on that stuff up front because there's already really good short, straight to the point videos on that front bumper and that winch install. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things that gave me problems. In case you do it yourself, you'll know what to look for and know that that might just be a common problem. So anyway, feel free to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, comment down below. I read every comment, and we'll try to answer any questions that you guys may have. Stay tuned for more videos on the X3 and the Twin 6 project coming up. We're also going to be doing some stuff to the R6 probably here over the winter, as well as maybe a couple of other videos coming out here shortly with some other things. So trying to mix it up, trying to keep things different and not do the same thing over and over and over again. So if you guys like that, let me know. If you don't like that, also let me know. I want to listen to what you guys want, and I will try and make that happen. So thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned till the next video. Stay safe, and get out in the garage and build something cool. See you guys. Peace.